So welcome to the SONA Foundation's fourth and final session in year one of our Music and Money series. I want to extend a big thank you to our host, BMI, and our partnering sponsor, City National Bank, with Denise Coletta, the head of music for CNB. I just want to add a disclaimer. The financial wellness content presented at this seminar is for informational purposes only and in no way should be relied upon for financial advice. Please consult your own financial advisor before making investments or other major decisions regarding your finances. The presenters, BMI, SONA, the SONA Foundation, and City National Bank, are not your investment advisors or business managers and should not be relied upon as such. So now that we've straightened all of that business out, I wanted to say a word about the times that we all live in. We live during a fraught and pivotal moment for our music industry, as well as for our local, national, and global society and culture. We now are standing up for our personal autonomy, identities, and freedoms. SONA stands with you to protect your creative rights and authentic selves by providing resources and programs in mental health, career development, and financial wellness. Our goals with the Music and Money seminar series are long-term. These sessions are meant to build upon each other to support long-term financial decision-making by songwriters and their advisors. Our session one, Financial Planning for the Music Creator, laid the foundation for the series as an intro to personal financial planning with panelists from the banking, business management, and legal sectors. Session two, Put Your Catalog to Work, was a conversation on building the value of your music catalog and featured panelists from Netflix Original Film, BMG Publishing, Production Music Library, and Grammy-winning songwriter-producer Brian Kennedy, who also serves on our board. Session three was on building your own business and brand, which brought together music industry panelist experts in the legal, business, and financial sectors, and a Grammy award-winning songwriters. Today's session four is how songwriters get paid, because that's what it's all about. You've got to get the money in the door to support yourself to continue on with your creative career. And it's the final session, as Ariel mentioned, of our first year of presentations. And in 2025, we'll start year two of the program. It's proven to be very popular and I think has really been of value to songwriters. Just to give you a brief roadmap for the day, we'll go on till about 2:30 with the panel. Then we'll take a short break, at which time you can submit your questions, and then we'll go on to Q&A. And now I would like to introduce a music warrior in her own right, our chair and moderator for today, Kay Hanley. Kay Hanley is a Peabody and Emmy award-winning songwriter, composer, performing artist, and world-class musical inspiration. Leader of the band Letters to Cleo, star singer in the classic film Josie and the Pussycats, and as co-composer with long-term songwriting partner Michelle Lewis for hit Disney series Doc McStuffins, Cartoon Network's DC Superhero Girls, Harvey Girls Forever, and Netflix Ada Twist Scientist, among many, many, many other credits. Recently, Kay was on a project of a lifetime as executive producer and music composer for a love letter to kindergarten teachers and their students, Disney Junior's newest hit series, Kindergarten the Musical, which I have seen and loved. So Kay is an inspiration to me and to our entire music community, a true culture warrior, Kay Hanley.
Can we just ask you questions this whole time? I would love that. Way better with that.
All right, now we're done. The end. Me, everyone. Hi, my name is Kay Hanley. Thank you, John. Thanks, Ariel. John, along with his colleague, Denise Coletta, back there, the rock star with the sunglasses on. The Denise and City National Bank were the first corporate sponsors of an event by Songwriters of North America. This was when we were a baby organization and really did not have, corporations lining up to support songwriters who are fighting for fair pay and going to we were a very nerdy organization. Not a lot of sexy photo ops going on in SONA. And you guys were the first people to give us a stamp of approval. And since then, obviously in the last decade, we've been able to accomplish some pretty extraordinary things together in our partnership between Songwriters of North America and now the SONA Foundation and City National Bank. So thanks, you guys. And Barbie, thank you for letting us be super fancy in your Beverly Hills offices. It's we feel very something. It feels like I shouldn't be here, It's I should be here. No, I should be here. We should all be here. It's a lovely space. That's all I'm trying to say. It's a great space. So as John mentioned, this is the final Music and Money event for season 1. We've done 3 of these so far. This is our 4th one, and the last one in the series. And I'm particularly excited about this because represented on this panel are some of my favorite artists. And can I say that Pulse is my favorite publisher? It's you're just cool people, just cool. It's just coolness. And anyway, I'll tell you who all these people are. Why don't we start there? Okay, so AG, right there. I've known her for a very long time. An LA-based producer, Grammy-nominated songwriter, mix engineer, and all-around powerhouse. With 500-plus song placements to date, she has become one of the most prolific producers in the world of film and TV. AG's work has been featured in countless trailers, promos, films, and TV shows. She works closely with music supervisors, trailer houses, ad agencies, and film studios, including Universal, Lionsgate, Paramount, Warner Brothers, along with networks, streaming platforms such as HBO, Stars, ABC, Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon. AG's music has also been featured on national and global ad campaigns for Verizon, Samsung, Ford, Cadillac, Starbucks, P&G, Brawny, and more. AG's catalog has generated what? Over 340 million streams. What? Girl. And 390 million views on YouTube. I'm learning some things about my girl. She got her start as a performing singer-songwriter, supporting Jeff Buckley, Jackson Browne, and Bonnie Raitt, among others, and released 7 albums and 2 EPs under her own names, Adrianne, until 2011, AG since 2012. In 2008, she joined with Kyler England and Gabriel Mann to form The Rescue's amazing, amazing band, with whom she still performs and is currently working with and developing the music for a Broadway musical version of The Lost Boys. Coming to Broadway. AG has made it her mission to bring diversity to the sync world in any way she can. Not satisfied with the status quo in this historically male-dominated industry, AG collaborates with and mentors the next generation of women producers, writers, and engineers as they take a solid step and hold their ground. AG, everyone. And also, little known fact, I wrote a song about AG on my 2004 when I didn't really know her very well. So I wrote a song about her. I don't think we've ever talked about that.
I've known for a long time.
I know, because Meg Toohey told you.
It's so sweet. I just didn't know if I should bring it up, but you just did in front of a lot of people.
I did. So it's out in the open. We're all sharing this information together. It's on it's on an EP called the Baby Doll EP, and you can guess which one it is. Okay, Serona Elton, who is a new friend of mine, serves as head of educational partnerships for the Mechanical Licensing Collective. In this role, Elton directs the MLC's efforts to engage future members of the music industry currently studying music business and related subjects at colleges and universities around the country and around the world. With extensive experience as a music industry professional and educator, Elton is also a professor and chair of the music industry department at the University of Miami Frost School of Music. In 2023, she was named Music Business Educator of the Year by the Music Business Association. That's pretty awesome. She is also a Yamaha Master Educator. Elton has worked for or with many top music companies, including Warner Music Group, Sony Music Entertainment, and Universal Music Group as an expert in licensing and royalties. She is co-author of the book, Music Business Handbook and Career Guide, 13th in its 13th edition. That sounds like a lot of books.
I came on board with the 13th edition.
Oh,
it was
okay.
already there before me.
It's the 13th edition is the best, I heard. And has contributed to news stories for NPR's Marketplace, CNN.com, the New York Times, I've never heard of it, Billboard, and other outlets. Elton has served as president of the Music and Entertainment Industry Educators Association, as a trustee of the Copyright Society of the USA, as the chair of the Florida Bar Entertainment, Arts, and Sports Law section, and on the Recording Academy Florida Chapter Board of Governors. She is also an alumnus of the Nashville-based Leadership Music Program and a licensed attorney in New York and Florida. Welcome to Serona Elton. Mr. David Streit. He's the BMI guy here today, and the token guy. So
Yes, I am.
how do you feel about that?
Not great.
Okay. Well, hopefully you'll
you.
redeem yourself, David.
Thank you.
David Streit is a director in the creative department at BMI. In this role, David interfaces with songwriters and publishers to assist with everything from sign-up and registration questions to putting together showcases and facilitating introductions. We'll be asking him all about those things. David's day-to-day work includes signing songwriters, producers, and artists across all genres, advancing showcases, workshops, and panels aimed at educating and supporting the creative community. Prior to BMI, Streit had his own artist management company where he managed clients ranging from pop producers to DJs, and also has a background as a composer, creating original works for composers, for commercials, video games, and movies. Streit holds a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Film Production. Oh, that's good.
It's weird. Sorry.
Chapman Community. No, that's quite pedigree, and is a current member of the AIMP, Association of Independent Music Publishers, and prior board member of the CCC, the California Copyright Conference. Welcome, David. And Annie, do I say your last name Aberle? Aberle. Annie Aberle is currently Senior Vice President, Head of Creative at Los Angeles-based, as I mentioned before, super cool music company, Pulse Music Group, where she signs, develops, and implements creative strategy for Pulse Music Group's roster of songwriters and producers, and oversees the A&R team for the publishing division of the company. Since joining Pulse in 2018, Aberle has played a significant role in the company's growth. She has worked closely with clients such as Tyler Johnson and Alde, facilitated partnerships with John Bellion and Dan Wilson, and represents an incredible roster of songwriters, including James Blake and Ryan Beatty and Jack Roshan, both writers who significantly contributed to Beyonce's internationally acclaimed Cowboy Carter album. Before joining Pulse, Aberle gained experience in artist management and film and TV development. She holds a BA from the School of Cinematic Arts at the University of Southern California. Welcome, Annie.
Thank you.
And now it's literally time to go home, because we've been here a long time. All right, so we're going to start with you, David, because PROs are, I mean, to my mind, the PRO is it's step one for songwriters. It's like songwriter kindergarten.
Yep.
And like the first thing you do as a songwriter that shows that you're like serious about it is you join a PRO like BMI, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do? What does BMI do? What does a PRO do?
So the reality is we're one piece of a much bigger world. But there's a lot of different types of royalties out there. And the reason why there's different types of royalties is because music can be used in different ways. And so for each different way that your music is being used, there might be a different way to get compensated, right? So what we do at BMI is we're just helping to pay one of those royalties. And the one royalty that we pay is called performance royalties. When most people hear the word performance, I think they think like live performance. Right. But it actually doesn't technically have that definition with us. In our world, performance kind of means just like playing out loud. So if your song plays out loud on the radio, that's a performance. Or if your song is streamed out loud on Spotify, that's a performance. Or if it is played out loud in a venue, that's a performance. So anytime that a business plays your composition, your underlying lyrics and melody, out loud in some capacity as part of their business, you should get paid. And the reality is like, if you're a songwriter and you release music, it's very difficult, if not impossible, for you to figure out who is playing your music around the world and how many times are they playing it and how to get a hold of the owner and how much to invoice them for. And if I hear my song playing in a coffee shop and I go, where's the owner of the coffee shop? And they're like, he's right there. And I say, hey, you just played my song. Can I get a free cappuccino? He's probably going to be like, get the F out of my coffee shop, right? And so this specific royalty typically works best when there's some sort of middleman involved. And that middleman company will go and license all the businesses, and they represent a lot of songwriters and publishers. And so the business can't say get out. They have to play ball, or at least they're at least more incentivized to do so. And that's what we are. So we're a performing rights organization. It's one of the oldest royalties, if not the oldest. I mean, it started in the mid 1800s in France. And it's changed a lot over the years. So we basically will go out. BMI is we're technically the biggest in the world in terms of money distributed and members, but there's other PROs all over the world and other ones here in the US like ASCAP and CSAC and GMR and others. And so if you're a songwriter who writes songs, or if you're a publisher who owns songs, you can get paid by us. And so we pay half of our royalties to the songwriters directly, which is a little rare, and we pay the other half of our royalties to the publishers who own the music. Most of the time, it's the same person, because if you write the music, by default, you're probably going to also own the thing that you just wrote. And so, basically we license the businesses. We get money from them. We get performance data from them as to what they played. And then if you're a writer or a publisher, you can sign up to us. You can tell us what you've released. And if we see that song was played by a business, we will pay you your piece of the pie after a bunch of really complex math. And there's a few different, as I mentioned, a few different PROs in the US. Most countries around the world just have one PRO. Brazil has like 7, but most countries have like 1. The US is a little strange in that we have multiple. But I think it's kind of a good thing. It's, I think that there's competition, and that makes us try to pay the best royalty rates possible, and that makes us offer as many services as we possibly can. And so not only do we pay royalties, which is the bread and butter of what we do, obviously, but we also try to help out in other ways. So we have mixers all the time. We have showcases. We're having a showcase at Hotel Cafe, actually, our acoustic lounge showcase, which we do once a month. That's on November 4th. Normally the first Monday of the month, unless there's a holiday, and then it's the second Monday. And then we had a high-level songwriter mixer right in this room yesterday. And so we always are trying to have events. We have stages at Lollapalooza and Austin City Limits. We have events at South by Southwest, which I'm lucky enough to get to go to every year. So yeah, and then I send a million emails and co-write ideas, and we have Spotify playlists. So we're always trying to provide as many creative services as we possibly can in addition to the royalties. And I will stop talking. I think that was...
No, that was really great. Thank you. Comprehensive. Who can join BMI?
Anyone.
And what do you like? Do I need to have a song on the radio to join BMI, or do I have to like pass a test or?
So my Venmo is no, I'm just kidding. So anybody in the world can join. We're actually open to everybody in the world. But the one stipulation is you can have as many publishing accounts with as many different PROs around the world as you want, but you can only have one songwriter account per territory. So most people just sign up to one, and it's for the world, and then you have one account. But let's say that you're signed up to ASCAP, well, then you couldn't sign up to BMI, because you're already signed up to one in the US, you can't sign up to another one, right? Or if you're signed up to SACEM, which is the French PRO, if you're signed up to them for the world, you can't join BMI. You would have to terminate with them first, then you could join us. But otherwise, anybody could join. It could be that you join and then you never register a song and you never receive a single royalty, but you could still sign up technically, right? 10 plus years ago, there wasn't that much of a need for the everyday songwriter who was just kind of independent to sign up, because iTunes doesn't pay performance royalties. Nothing's playing out loud. Buying a CD didn't pay performance royalties, or a record or a cassette. Back then I was getting my music from iTunes and Bandcamp. And if you were a composer, you could join because your music was on TV. If you were a bigger artist and your music was on the radio, then it made sense to join. Ever since streaming came out, now almost everybody has a reason to join if you are a musician. So we've not just us, but every PRO around the world has had a huge influx of members. And we're now just under 1.5 million. We're 1.4 something. Which is a lot.
So if I'm a BMI songwriter and I don't have a publishing deal with one of the big publishers, can I sign up to be my own publisher at BMI? How does that work?
A lot of people use the word unpublished.
Right.
And they say that by saying, I'm not in a publishing deal with someone.
Right.
But it's technically an incorrect word.
Right.
Because everything is published. Yeah. Someone owns it, whether it's you or someone else, right? And so if you're your own publisher, then you can sign up as a writer, you can sign up as a publisher, and most PROs make you sign up for those two accounts. You can sign up as a writer to collect your writing side, you can sign up as a publisher to collect your publishing half of the royalties, and we do the same thing at BMI. We offer a weird thing at BMI where if you are a writer and you own your own music, so you're the publisher as well, and you don't want to pay the money to set up the publishing account, you can just sign up as a writer, and you can collect both the writing and the publishing through that writer account. We will allow you to do that. So if you have 20% of the writing and 20% of the publishing, you can sign up as a writer, and you can just put 40%, and we'll just route everything through that writer account. I think a few other PROs around the world might offer that as well, but yeah.
Well, since we're talking about the publishing right, Annie, can you tell us a little bit about what is the difference between what you collect and what BMI collects?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a publisher, we have some key elements to what we do. We are in charge of the copyrights themselves. So separate to the master side, We're helping control copyrights. We are helping exploit them, find homes and opportunities for them. We're helping register them. We're administrating them, and we're collecting them. And so we work with the PROs where performance royalties are concerned, and they, as he described, pay out the writer side directly to the writers, and then they send us their the publishing share. And then depending on the publishing deal that you are thinking about signing or have signed, the split of what that looks like is slightly different. So in most situations, I work at an independent publishing company, so we most of the time are doing 50-50 splits on deals, which means that of the publishing share that comes to Pulse, 50% of that goes to the writer, and then the other 50% of that stays with us. And more specifically, the 50% that goes to the writer is actually being used to recoup the advance that you were signed with initially. So the way that works is, let's say you were signed for, easy number, $100,000. You would essentially not see the portion of the publisher share that is coming to you until you have fully recouped that $100,000. And there are admin types of deals. There are also writers that just choose to maintain their publisher share. So it works out a little bit differently. But that's sort of our relationship with the PROs, specifically where performance royalties are concerned. And then we also collect mechanical royalties, which we will get to, obviously, in time. And that relates to streaming and, so many other types of modalities in terms of people, streaming music and listening to music in that capacity. So performance royalties, mechanical royalties, and a huge part of publishers' business and for our songwriters as well is synchronization licensing as well. So we have a sync department at the company, and we are not only making sure that if your song ends up in a Pepsi ad that you're seeing the revenue from that, but we're negotiating that on your behalf, and we're also finding opportunities for your copyrights to end up in those places. Mm-hmm. So specifically as a boutique publishing company, and I'm sure that we'll get to this, but a big part of the reason why someone would choose to sign to us versus an admin deal at a major, perhaps, is that we're offering this huge amount of creative services to not only make sure that you're getting paid for the songs that are out there and exist, but making opportunities for your copyrights and making sure that we can create, more copyrights, whether it's putting you in sessions and making sure that you're with the right collaborators, but also making sure that you're getting cuts with other artists, or that, if you're not releasing a song as an artist, we can find another avenue for you to make money off of that copyright.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I just want to tease that out a little bit more. And I actually do want to know the answer to this. I want to know the answer to everything I'm asking, by the way. There's no bullshit questions here today. They're all meaningful. But let's say that I license a song for a movie. And the movie appears on screen. I have a publishing deal with Pulse. When the film is rerun, I get paid my writer's share. And then when do I start getting paid my publishing? What is the breakdown of what I get paid? Because the PRO is a publishing right. The performance is a publishing right too, right?
Yeah.
So how does that break down if I have a song in a movie when it's rebroadcast?
Yeah, so when you're getting your song placed in a movie, there's typically two rights, immediate rights that are involved. The first one is going to be the right of synchronization, as Annie mentioned. Mm-hmm. And so that's basically the right to sync up your composition or master with their moving picture, whether it's a TV show or a movie or a commercial or whatever it is. And that normally gets paid pretty similar to on the placement when it happens. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's multiple sync fees if it's we're going to do one commercial for 6 months, and then if we sold a lot of Toyotas, we're going to do another commercial for 6 months. A lot of times with sync, it's just a one-time payment because the terms are perpetuity and universe and forever. Right. So you get paid that sync fee. That's just the right to sync up your music, your composition and master with their picture. Then after that, let's say it was synced to a TV show, and that TV show airs on television. Every time it's performed publicly on television, you get performance royalties from us. And so, that's what I kind of meant earlier. there's different royalties for the different ways that your music is being used, I guess.
Right.
So the performance royalties come in, and the writer share and publishing share comes in at the same time.
Right.
Every country has a different payment schedule, but we pay quarterly, typically for the quarter that happened 2 or 3 quarters previous.
So, but you are not collecting as on the rebroadcast. That is, so you're paying the sync fee, and you're paying on the rebroadcast, and you are not.
We would still be collecting for our writers in that capacity. So let's say a sync comes in, and for all intents and purposes, one of my clients wrote the song 100%. So they completely own that copyright. As the publishing company, we would say, hey, we'd like to hike this up to $10,000 a side. So $10,000 for the master side, $10,000 for the copyright for the publishing side. So that means that, in theory, my client is entitled to $10,000 because they wrote 100% of that copyright. So we would help negotiate that number, and that would be paid directly to my client's account.
Right.
So in this model, again, let's say they sign for $100,000. Within a week, amazing, they have a sync for $10,000 for a song that they wrote 100% themselves. Then when that money comes in, that would be deducted from what they owe us. So now they owe us $90,000. And when that starts to be played on TV or an ad spot, then it becomes performance royalties, and then our writer is paid from their writer share and from part of the publishing share as well that comes through the PROs. Does that make sense?
Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. And you just mentioned the master side, so I just wanted to, for songwriters who, I should back up a little bit and just mention that the reason why this subject is so, music and money is so important to me personally is because I had put out a couple of albums with my band, had appeared in a few movie soundtracks, like this ASCAP money would, like, I think I was 30 something and way more than a decade into my career before I found out what the ASCAP money was all about. Like, I really had no idea and no one to explain it to me. And as a, I didn't come into the music business as a songwriter like planning to become a business person. I was just writing songs. So like I didn't know anything. I certainly didn't know what my publishing, I had a publishing deal, and as far as I knew, they gave us an advance. I didn't know what it was for. I didn't know anything about any of it. And I also didn't know who to ask or how to ask. And I just had no idea. So when Annie is talking about, I'm just going to assume that maybe you don't know what the two sides are. And if you don't, I will explain. So the master side is the sound recording. If you are a songwriter and you are pitching songs, you may own the master for that. Like, you may own the entire master and own all of your publishing, in which case you are getting the sync money for both of those rights. And if you are an artist and you're assigned to a record label, the record label owns the master. Or if you're a songwriter and the song is performed by an artist who is assigned to a label, the label owns the master. So that's how that all breaks down. So as a song it's not one pie, it's actually two pies. So we will continue on from there. Oh, Annie, your work in finding AR. Okay, so your work in A&R, in artist development. I am an artist songwriter. I don't have a publishing deal. I really want to write for. I want to write for other artists. I want to write for Sync. I don't necessarily want to do this in tandem. I want to do this sort of as a parallel lane to my artist career. I really want to sign to Pulse Publishing because it's so cool and it's where all the awesome producers are. I know I'm going to find all my best collaborators there and my best syncs. And how do I, A, get on your radar, And if I just, sent you an email with saying like, I want to sign with you, Annie. What do I send you 100 songs? Do I send you
No.
two? Do I send you?
Please no.
Do I send you 2 songs? Do I send you how do I get on your radar, and what is my best chance of getting your attention with my outreach to you?
Great question. I love it. So yeah, I mean, I think that it's important to consider that it's not a one size fits all, right? Like, I make a really specific effort, and I always have, to listen to every submission that is sent to me. Like, there's certain people that send me monthly songs, and I know them by name, and I'll respond, and I'll be like, you're amazing, keep going. Some weeks are harder than others to do all of that listening, but a lot of people don't really utilize their email as well as I think they should. So I think it's a little bit different, case by case. I would say that some really important things to keep in mind are utilizing the resources that you have, right? So social media is something that specifically comes to mind. If you are in a session with someone and they mention that they're signed to Pulse, ask people about their experience. Like, who is your A&R? How did you get in touch with them? I think information is probably the most important thing that we all have access to. And I always am reminded that songwriters are sitting in a windowless room for 6 hours a day, a lot of the time, just like spilling their guts to each other. So I would just remind you to ask questions and get a sense of how people got their relationships and their connections, and if they would maybe be comfortable sending a demo of yours to their A&R or to their manager. So that's one idea. Utilizing social media, definitely. I think, following A&Rs or following Songwriter, like being really thoughtful about, somebody just signed to Sony. Let me click on the picture, like who's the A&R, who's the manager, like utilizing the tools that you have, right? Going to their pages, most people will say A&R at Sony Music Publishing. Follow them, shoot them a message. I get so many submissions over DMs. I listen to all of them. I end up setting up sessions with those folks as well. So just really kind of utilizing the tools that you have, I think, is really essential. And for me, my favorite kind of submission email is concise and includes a song or two, a little bit of background on where are you based. Are you a songwriter, an artist, a producer, an instrumentalist, maybe a combination of some of those things? Are there any key people that you've been collaborating with? Any cuts that you've had released that I should know of? Just context is really important. Obviously, sending a great song is the best thing that you can do, but so much of my job is contextualizing, right? Because there's so much music and there's so many names coming at me that if I can say, oh, you work with this other writer who I just met who's super cool, I'll be even more thoughtful about making sure to listen to that song. So I think communicate some key elements, but keep it concise, and also be repetitive. Like, I think that I really take note to the people that send me songs monthly, or the people that send me songs once every 2 months, or people that reach out and say, hey, I sent you a song last month. Do you have 10 minutes to jump on a call? Like, I'm so willing to give my time in that way. I think what becomes difficult is when it's like essays and here's a Dropbox of 20 songs, and I'm like, where do I even I don't have time to do this right now. So and I think something as an A&R, I'm pitching songs constantly, like, oh, what does Dua Lipa want, or like, what is Halsey looking for? And something that I'm reminded of constantly and that I'm educating or reminding some of my A&R team about is like, you never really know what mindset someone's in when you send them a song, right? I always say that the best way to share music is like sitting with somebody pressing play, right? You have their full attention, you can see their reaction. That's really important. But sometimes I send a great song and I don't get a response. And instead of being frustrated about that, I'm like, maybe they were driving, or maybe they had a 4-hour meeting and they were so fried from listening to music all day. Like, you just don't know. So if you really believe in a song or an idea, keep trying. And I think a lack of response doesn't mean that it's a bad idea. It could just be that the person didn't see it, or it came to them at the wrong time, or they opened the link and then somebody called them and they got distracted. So I think just persevere and realize that a lack of response is by no means a rejection. And I get rejected on a daily basis, and we all do it, So I think just kind of adapting your mindset to view it as this is an opportunity for me to keep pushing as opposed to seeing it as failure, you know?
So don't take it personally.
Big time.
Big
time.
time.
Yeah.
It's not personal. It's not personal. Thank you so much, Annie. Adrianne, we're going to move on to you.
Okay.
You're an artist.
Yes.
You started out as an indie artist. Now you are, you're a vocalist. I love your singing.
That's
You're
so
a
nice.
great singer.
I'm so bored with my voice, but that's very sweet.
You know, I think that's what happens to us,
Yeah.
you know, because we're with our voice every day.
Yeah.
But I love it because I don't hear it every day. Producer, you're an engineer, you're a songwriter, like a real songwriter, like you write songs with and for other artists. You are a sync master. Like you have a lot of commercials with like that, and that's kind of the dream for people. Like you just do it all, and you're doing it all the time. Yeah. So basically, I want to know: did you get like a manual or like a set of like instructions that came
I think
with
the manual was, do you want to eat?
Right.
If you want to not starve to death, you better figure it out. That's how it started, because I had nothing. I mean,
Did you start in engineering right
no.
away? Was that the first thing you started doing?
I went to school for it
Okay.
at Berkeley in Boston, but at the time I was in school, this was the 90s, and there were I was the only girl in most of my classes. And then also I took those classes, but like I couldn't actually be a producer or an engineer outside of this little bubble I was in. So I ended up being an artist that was very controlling of what the producer she was working with were doing.
That worked great, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You made a lot of friends.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
especially when a girl tries to tell a dude what
Oh,
to
my
do.
God.
Back then, it was not.
not.
Eventually, I started producing my own stuff because I hadn't gotten to the point yet where I thought I could produce other people. And then I finally was like, yeah, I'm going to do that. Even if there are no other women that I know doing it, I'm going to do it anyway. So, but it took me a long time. No, yeah, thank you. It took me a long time.
Was this in the day of like, were you like slicing tape to do edits and stuff? And
there was still 2-inch tape. Yep.
Yeah, amazing. Where are those 2-inch tapes?
No idea.
What?
No idea. Oh, well, I was doing them in school. By the time I graduated, Pro Tools was born. And so
Right.
that's sort of where it went. I do have a few DATs.
DATs.
Remember the DAT?
We just thought DATs were going to take over the world.
It's
For
true.
those of you who are too young to know what a DAT is, I guess you'll never know because I don't.
And they were so
I don't
unreliable.
know.
They were the
even.
biggest pieces of shit ever.
Oh my God, it was so stupid.
And
I remember
always-
we bought, our band saved up and bought a DAT player so we could listen back to DAT instead of just like, to this day, the best way to listen to your mix is on a cassette in your car. Right? Maybe
Probably.
not. I mean, for me.
Yeah.
Maybe not everyone, but we digress. So how did you, you went, no, obviously like this didn't take place over the course of a couple of months or, I mean, we're talking about decades that you have taken to, how did you know, what were those like pivotal moments where like the artist became an engineer and a producer, and then the producer became a songwriter producer, and then the songwriter producer became a mentor, and what were those turning points for you?
I mean, I think I started as a songwriter, and I think in my soul, the first thing I am is a songwriter, and everything that I have done as a result of that is in an effort to get those songs into the world, whether I was an artist or a producer or a mix engineer, or writing Broadway, like, you know, it's always been about the songs. Where I'm writing a song with an artist, you know, I'm writing the song before I even touch the production, because the song is the whole ballgame to me. The production is just the icing, you know. The voice, the vocal, and the song are the whole ballgame. So I've always started from there, and just like, I think I was flailing for a long time as an artist, and I was in a band, and we were on a label, and I was like such a mess. And then we got dropped, and I was like, what am I going to do with my life? And I think that is when the birth of my CEO self, I sort of became two people that were living in one body, and I became my own boss. And I was like, sit your ass in the chair for 8 hours and figure it out. And I think, you know, there were certain things I had to get over if my CEO self was going to be a real thing, and at least in my mind. And that.
Thinking that way at the time?
No, this is like retrospect. Like now I can understand like what I did, because like I believe you can't really have one without the other. Like the CEO can't show up without the insecure, sensitive, moody artist. You have to have both in the room at the same time all the time. And I think once that the CEO was born, I started to realize that I had a lot of limited thinking, and part of that is because I'm brown, part of that is because I'm a woman, and that there was, and part of that is my family. I didn't grow up with much, and my family didn't go to college, and so like I had to think that I could be something more than that, and being a Hispanic, being able to be successful financially and otherwise in a way that mostly white people are. I had to confront that. And I think I got to a point in my life where I was like, you know what? I don't like feeling like I can't do something or someone's trying to keep me from it. And I had a chip on my shoulder for a long time, and that fueled me, and it served me for a long time until it
She really did.
Huh?
I said she really did.
Yeah, and then I did, but then at one point I was like, this isn't serving me anymore. It's not helping. It's making me angry. It's making, you know, because the realities of these things are there. They're always going to be there. I was telling you how I did this panel once. I was on a panel with 3 other producers who were all male, and we were all at the same level. And when we got off the stage, all the dudes went up to all the male producers, and there was only one person that came up to me, and it was a girl. And I that was one of those moments where I was like, wow, it's like, it's fucked up, but it's just the reality, and you don't have to be pissed about it just because it's the reality. And I just fucking left. I was like, great, I'm out of here. But that takes a long time. Anyway.
But you were there for that one woman.
Talk to her
and
for 20 minutes.
That's how it starts.
Absolutely.
And by any chance, do you still?
No.
Is she still around?
No, but that was a good conversation.
And when was that? How long ago was that?
Maybe 5 years ago.
And have you seen any movement in the last 5 years around, like when you're appearing on a, you know, or at an event that is producer centric or engineer centric? Like, are you finding that there are more? I haven't done
another one of those where it's like primarily about that very male dominated thing. I mean, I did a trailer panel, and yes, I was approached just as much as the male trailer producers somehow. So maybe in that way, it's good, because I mean, literally, I think I know one other trailer producer that's a woman, but people were kind of okay with that. But and that was a couple years ago.
So where do you make? I'm just gonna spit it out. Where do you make the most money?
Well, I think it's changed.
Which part of this of all the plates that are spinning? Which one is keeping the lights on?
Well, I mean,
and which one is paying for the vacation? Really,
the sync world really did that for a long time, and then the DSP, because I co-own all most of the masters that I put out. That income has been wonderful, but you know, the reason why that is because when I first started working as a producer, nobody wanted to hire me, so I was like, fine, I guess I'll just take 50% of everything, and then, but you know what, that ended up working out. Yeah. So it was a blessing in disguise, and yeah, I mean, the sync world is different now. I sold part of my catalog a few years ago, and that was helpful. And now I'm working in Broadway, so I'll be passing around a hat because it's really hard to make money in Broadway.
And that's the sort of choice that you can make as a veteran in this business who, you have been able to
Yeah.
keep the lights on and
Yeah.
pay tuition and
Yeah.
go out for a nice meal every now and again, and being able to make a decision to like roll the dice on yourself again in a way that you probably haven't in a really long time.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
that kind of speaks volumes about where you are in your career.
And it's scary when I have a kid, I have a wife, I have a mortgage. It's not like I'm just like by myself. It's really, that was a huge roll of the dice. And let's hope, guys, October 2025, this show goes on Broadway. Pray for me. We'll see. Yeah.
So we were talking about, you mentioned something about limited thinking and a mindset of resourcefulness. And when we were on the call to talk about this panel, you also said something. You said financial wellness is an art form itself. How so?
Because I think it's so much more than just it being about the dollars and cents of it and where it comes from, and that's a facet of it. But I think that personally, I think that the manifestation element and also acting in alignment with the things that you want is key. And this is impossible, what we do. It's impossible to make money in music. It's, I mean, like, what? But somehow it happens. And I do think that the mindset is, it has to start from there, because that is what's going to inform all the decisions that you make, how you're resourceful, how you're sort of like, I mean, part of why I'm here is I want to learn from them. Like, there's plenty of shit I still don't understand about PROs and about this stuff, and I'm sure there's money on the table somewhere, and maybe I'll figure it out one day. But I'm always, learning, trying to be a better CEO and take care of my insecure, fragile, dark artist self. She needs to be taken care of.
Yeah.
But I also need to kick her ass sometimes. Get over yourself.
I absolutely love that analogy. I love that metaphor. And I think that being teachable in that way, like being humble and like knowing what you don't know, and knowing that and I think once you have kids and once you have responsibilities, you're accountable to other people. It's like you become allergic to not knowing the future, and it's helpful to. You said that you sat down and read books. Can you tell
there
us?
There are a couple books that really just changed
Give us a
me.
couple.
There's this book by Stephen Pressfield called The War of Art. Has anybody, you've read that book? It's literally my Bible. I have it on my phone, and I've read it several times, and it's really wonderful, and it kicks your ass. It kicks your insecure artist ass in this really fantastic way. There was another book by a dude that has since gone to prison. But there were a lot of great
love it already.
things. It's called Harmonic Wealth, and a lot of it is about the mindset and the manifestation of financial wealth. It's because I can't understand financial wealth in a sort of typical way, because that's just not how my brain works. It has to come from a emotional place for me to get it, and for me to be creative and be resourceful and how to figure out how to support myself. And that book really helped me understand the mechanics of the psychological side of it.
And did that make you help you feel more comfortable with the idea of making your music into a business, or becoming that CEO? I mean, I think, and maybe I may be kind of projecting my own stuff onto you, but I did feel bad about, it was sort of anathema in the 90s to be an artist who knew anything about the business, and we were kind of like, it was drilled into us like, oh, let those people in the bean counters do their thing, and we just didn't know anything about it. And it seemed, and I remember thinking for a long time, like, I can't believe they paid me for this. I would do it for free.
Yes.
And I probably, and like getting past that
I
mentality.
still suffer from that. My wife is like, bitch.
Yes.
Like, that is not
Like, we're not a charity.
no. Like this is real. Yeah, you need to understand that you would do it for free, but you're not gonna.
Yeah.
So stop and
Right.
negotiate. Like sometimes I'm just like, that sounds great. I'll just do that. She reminds me, no,
Yeah.
you need to negotiate. Because
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm good. That sounds like a good number. I mean, I don't need more than that. And she's like, no, you're gonna negotiate.
Yeah.
So like, I'm still trying to be a better CEO because again, that insecure artist self is like, oh my God, you want to pay me anything to do this thing?
You've heard of me? What?
Wow, like I'll do anything. Like, you know what I mean? And like that voice still kind of takes over sometimes. And I
Yes.
have to be reminded.
What we do is, it is a rare skill, it is high art, and it is valuable, and we do not give it away for free.
The other, I will say
The end.
one quick thing, and I'll stop rambling. The reason why the insecure, sensitive, dark artist has to also be in the room is because the best art
Yes.
is made from those people, not from the CEO. So the product has to be authentic. It has to come from a transcendent place. You have to be able to access the muse. And the CEO is not coming to do that. The CEO is being like, sit your ass in the chair and wait for the muse to come. Don't just decide one day if you're feeling inspired. Oh, I guess I'll work today because I'm feeling inspired. No, the inspiration is going to come by sitting in the chair and waiting for the muse. And by the way, the muse might not even get there that day. Doesn't matter. You show up the next day and you hope she comes. And I think that like that combination, I think what has really changed the game for me.
I feel like this this duality that you're describing is going to return to music and money. I really love this metaphor. It's really working for me. I love it. So Serona, we've been talking about the different ways that, PROs have been around forever, publishers have been around forever. The MLC is new, and it's collecting on a new right, the digital mechanical royalty. I met Serona. You were one of my pandemic friends. We met on Zoom when the MLC first got up and running. They were building this beautiful office in Nashville, and then no one got to go to it because the pandemic hit, and we all stayed home and talk to each other on Zoom. And so we didn't actually meet until like 2 years after we met. So it's always so nice to see you. And Serona is so knowledgeable about the work of she's knowledgeable about a lot of stuff, but she's particularly well versed in how the MLC works, the Mechanical Licensing Collective. Can you just tell us a little bit about how the MLC came to exist, why it exists, and what it currently collects for songwriters?
It would be my pleasure. So let's just start with mechanical royalties as a concept for a second. So mechanical royalties have been around for actually a long, long time. They can go back to the earliest 1900s, and we still use that term mechanical, which is just so confusing, but it comes from back then. And we're talking about when you take a song and then you turn it into a sound recording, and then you make that sound recording available in a mechanical device that can play music, right? So that's where we keep that word from. And those first mechanical devices were player piano rolls and music boxes. And literally they were like, well, it's not a human playing it, it's a mechanical device. Let's use that word. Wow. So we still use that word today. And so if you're tracing the history, piano rolls literally they generated mechanical royalties. When a piano roll was sold, there was a mechanical royalty that had to be paid. Then we moved forward, we had to records and wax cylinders and all that stuff, shellac and whatever, right? And vinyl and tape and CD, and then downloads, right? Permanent downloads. Mechanical royalties are generated by permanent downloads. And then we moved into the streaming era. Mm-hmm. And there's two different kinds of streaming. Well, maybe a lesser known fact.
Write this down.
There's what you might call on-demand streaming, right? Go find your favorite track, your favorite song on your favorite platform. I want to hear it now, press play. on demand, right? The copyright law calls that interactive streaming. That generates a mechanical royalty. It also generates a performance royalty, generates both.
It does.
Non-interactive streaming is like digital radio. Pick the playlist, pick the station, pick the channel, but you can't pick the exact recording. That's treated more like radio. That's a performance, goes to you, doesn't come to us. That does not generate a mechanical royalty. So mechanicals are not new. They've been around for a long, long time. What's new is the way mechanicals for downloads and streams, how those get collected and pay out, that has changed thanks to the Music Modernization Act. That changed the way this works. And yes, there's a major leap forward in how this works and efficiency and getting people paid, getting money to the right people. So the MLC was created because of the Music Modernization Act. Right? The law specifically said we need to change the way this is working. It's not working well. People are not getting paid. It's not acceptable. We need to change the way this works, and we need a new nonprofit, independent organization, standalone organization that's governed by a specific board, right? A whole bunch of rules about exactly the way the MLC operates come from the copyright law. Which is unusual. You know, the copyright law doesn't lay out everything about what you do. It does lay out what we do. So this new way of doing things went into effect January 1st, 2021. That's how new we're talking. And so this organization got stood up and ready to do that during a pandemic. And so now, since 2021 and forward, when you have a mechanical royalty generated mainly on streaming, download gets a little complicated because it can go two different ways, and it's up to the digital download service which way they want to do it. They have a choice. But the streaming services, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, they are generally sending their mechanical royalties in the US to the MLC, and then the MLC pays that money out. It works a little differently than the way the PROs work in terms of who we pay. We are paying the party that is handling the publishing administration. So in many cases, that's a publisher or a publishing administrator, and in many other cases, it is the songwriter. But it's not because they are the writer. Like, we don't pay a writer share the way that the PROs do. We are paying them because they are the publisher. Like, that's your default. You are your own publisher until you decide to do a deal with a publisher or sign up with a publishing administrator. If you haven't done either of those two things and someone's like, well, who's your publisher? The answer is, I am. So we pay whoever is collecting, whoever's acting as the publishing administrator is who we pay. And in many cases, if we're paying a publisher, then they pay the writer. So we'll pay you pay the writer their share of the mechanicals where there's a publisher involved. So that's sort of a little intro in a nutshell. I can't remember all the things you wanted me to cover now.
How does that relate to Sound Exchange?
Right. So Sound Exchange. So quick little umbrella term, right? PROs, ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, Sound Exchange, the MLC. We are all a category of organization called a collective rights management organization. But what we do differently is we each collect a different kind of royalties. Mm-hmm. So ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, performance royalties on the song side of the business. Mm-hmm. Sound Exchange collects digital performance royalties for the sound recording or the master. Mm-hmm. The MLC collects mechanical royalties, which is on the song side of the house, whereas Sound Exchange is the only one on the sound recording side of the house. So it's a different kind of royalty. Mm-hmm. Sound Exchange collects, in the US, we don't have the same rights that other countries do in sound recordings. Mm-hmm. So when a sound recording in the US is digitally performed, like on satellite radio or digital radio, that generates a royalty for the recording artists. And that money goes to Sound Exchange and they pay it out. So we're similar, we're sort of like sisters-ish, and they're pretty heavily regulated like we are, but they collect a different kind of royalties than we do.
It's very similar to what we collect, but for the master. And it's almost like a mirror image what we do, where we pay writers and publishers, they pay like artists and labels or master owners. Yeah. But as Serona said, there's a huge caveat in the US, which is that Sound Exchange doesn't pay for all the different services that we do. They only pay for digital broadcasts, like non-interactive
streaming, not FM radio play, not
Other countries work
nightclubs and
differently, though.
DJs. That doesn't generate the royalties in the U.S. for the sound recording.
So, okay, so you said something that I'd like to spotlight, which is that if you are a songwriter and you do not have a publishing deal, you are a music publisher. And so, which leads me to the next question. Who can sign up for the MLC? Like, we've heard a lot about, connect to collect, all of the slogans to get songwriters to, and it's been great, to get songwriters aware of the MLC. But it turns out that there's actually a little bit of a hitch. Can you explain who signs up for the MLC? You sort of alluded to the collection and distribution, but if you could just kind of tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. So it actually becomes a bit of a song-by-song analysis because the party that signs up and becomes a member of the MLC, and we say connect to collect with us, a little catchphrase, right? That means become a member. And by the way, it's free to join. There's no cost to join. The party that needs to do that is the party handling the publishing administration. But now here, let's talk about a crazy scenario where you'll see how you have to look at the actual song involved. Because let's say you're a songwriter and you've been doing this a minute, okay? And you wrote 10 songs, your first 10 songs were part of some publishing deal with you. And you're gonna continue administering those till the copyright runs out. If that was all you did, you would not become a member of the MLC. Because the MLC is gonna pay your publisher will pay you. Okay, but that deal was done. Those 10 songs are still out there. Then you wrote another 10 songs. And you chose to sign up with a publishing administrator like Songtrust for those 10 songs. So then you say, Serona, do I join now? My answer is still nope. Those second 10 songs, we're gonna pay Songtrust, and then they will pay you. Don't need to become a member yet. Then you write another 10 songs. And you're like, yeah, there's no publisher. Didn't sign up with a publishing administrator. Serona, do I join yet? Yes, you do. You now become a member of the MLC, but you will only sign up, register the last 10 songs. Don't register all 30. Doing that creates a whole rights conflict with your 10 and then a rights conflict with the second 10. No, you will become a member and you will sign up just the last 10 because it's only those where you are the publishing administrator, right? And so at that point, and someone says, so how are you getting your mechanicals? Your answer is, well, I get some money from my publisher for those songs. I get some money from my publishing administrator for those songs. And then I get some money directly from the MLC for those other ones, right? I'm sorry, it's so complicated. I wish it wasn't. But so could I just say, if I just met you, should you join or not? I can't say yes or no. I have to say, well, let's talk about your songs, right? It's a song-by-song analysis because it all comes down to, are you acting as the publisher for the song?
That actually is a great way to put it. I hadn't even heard of that before, where it's a song by, because I have, I had a publishing deal for my Letters to Cleo years, and then, but for the last 15 years, I have not had a publishing deal. I've been my own publisher, but my work in animation, my work in television, Disney or Netflix keeps my publishing, so I can't, so there's like a huge swath of my songs that I do not have control over within the MLC, and then 15% that qualify me for membership in the MLC. So if I am, you know what I want you to tell people actually. So since the creation of the MLC in January 2021, now this is a royalty that was not, there was no sort of clearinghouse for this right to be collected and distributed. The MLC was the first body to do that. How much have you collected and distributed to songwriters since then?
Right. So let's see. I don't have all the numbers off the top of my head. I can give you a really important number, which is that we're almost at the point of having paid out $2.5 billion with a B dollars since the first time we started paying out royalties in April of 2021.
Yeah.
That's a big number.
That's amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
I will clap for all my team that get that money out the door. And there's still plenty more to be paid. But we're very, very proud of that number. And we pay royalties monthly, which is more often than a lot of other types of similar organizations. And we've always paid out on time every month since April 2021. So that's a big number. But I wasn't sure if you were heading towards the historical unmatched land, is where I thought you might be going.
I wasn't. That we're going to keep that for like we'll keep that for like the master's degree MLC conversation.
Right. Let's start.
Yeah,
crawl,
we'll
walk,
start.
run.
We're gonna because before today, how many people know about the MLC? Okay. How many people have been on the MLC website? How many people have dicked around on the MLC website to like look at your songs and your matches? And amazing. That's actually a very high percentage, and not one that we see in most music business rooms with creators. Would you say that that people are finally starting to understand what the MLC does?
Yeah, I mean, now I speak at a lot of conferences, as do a number of us at the MLC, and we're always meeting people out in the field. And for the longest time, anybody would meet, would say, "What is the MLC?" That was the number one thing we'd hear. But now more often, it's much more balanced. A lot more people that will come up and go, "Hey, MLC, yeah, I'm a member." Or, I've been meaning to sign up, or like, I'm not starting from complete scratch, which is really cool. And I remember at one of the South by Southwest not that long ago, we do these things, and I know it's not the sexiest, and it's a little dry, and, you hope people retain it. And I'm walking down the street after a session that day, and across the street were these guys we met actually at a BMI brunch, and they holler across the street, "Yo, MLC!" I was like, yes! So I think more often we are meeting people who are either already members or they've heard of it and they're still trying to figure out if they should join or shouldn't join, but there's more awareness. Yeah.
That's great. And, there is money out there for you. Who has gotten paid by the MLC? Amazing. Okay, great.
I'm sure we're paying you.
Yes. Yes. And do you know if you've been paid by the MLC, Adrianne?
I am spoken for I've been
Forever?
spoken for forever, yeah.
So how do we, if you are a published songwriter, and your publisher is a member of the MLC on your behalf, is there any way if you can you go in and look at your catalog, your songs? Like how can you sort of like, sorry, I'm having an allergy attack.
Oh, no. Yeah, let me give you a break for a second.
Inhaler.
Let's get her an inhaler. I'll distract
You
for a
can answer
moment.
that question.
Yeah.
I'm getting my inhaler.
Okay, let's get what we need for her. So there's something cool now and something even cooler coming. So right now we have our database of musical works information. It's another word for song. Copyright law calls them musical works. In case you're like, why do they use that? Copyright law says musical works. Our database is publicly available. We're proud of that, but it's also mandated by the law. Our database must be publicly available. You don't need a login. You go to our website, themlc.com. Up in the top right is a big button that says public search. That is access to the database, no login needed. And so any songwriter, including those that are published, go look yourself up, song title, search by writer name, search by publisher name, whatever fields you like, and make sure you see the songs in the database. And then one of the things you can see on our site that you can't quite see the same way on a typical PRO site is you will see what the share is for each party we're paying. And let's say it's a publisher, like you, it would then also generally show which writer you're representing. Whereas most of the PROs will show you the writers and the publishers. They're kind of connected on our site. So any published songwriter, absolutely, please do go and look them up, make sure it's there, that your publisher has entered their claim, the share is right, that they're saying they're representing you. That tells you that they should be getting paid by us. If it's not there, they're not getting paid by us. But something that's going to be coming next year as well, we're working on it now, is sort of a songwriter hub where there's going to be more tools to get greater visibility of that information. It is still the case that the party handling the publishing is the only one who can make an update with us. But we are building out more tools to make it easier for songwriters to see the information and then get in touch with their publishers to say, like, hey, it's not there, or the share's wrong, or whatever, right? So
This is
so there are
huge.
tools coming, which is great. But unfortunately, I'm afraid you still got to work with your publisher to get anything that's wrong corrected. They need to make that correction.
And there is stuff wrong. I guarantee it. There is, because all of this data was input by human beings, and they spell names wrong. They forget to name one of the people on the, one of the people named in the splits. That, there's a lot of human error that can take place over the years. So definitely, before this tool becomes available, if you are published, call your publisher and ask someone to walk through the MLC portal of your catalog with you, so that you can just check and make sure that you're getting paid. Because as Serona just mentioned, there's a lot of money out there getting paid to songwriters, and you might be leaving some on the table, and we don't want that for you. Before we close out this part of of our panel, I wanted to sort of get an opinion. In your experience, David, is there still a career called songwriter, like just a songwriter, or does the songwriter need to be able to do other things? What are those things? Like, what does your experience tell you about this job?
So I guess we're entering my opinion world right now.
Yes,
This
we
is not
are.
BMI talking. This is just like
We're not going to hold
David
you
on
to
the
it.
weekends talking. I
Yes,
guess.
but it is on tape. But we can
It
get
is
rid
on
of
tape,
that.
so I could get fired.
No.
It's not easy, and I was a songwriter. I composed for commercials, and I toured around and DJ'd and played my own music, and did it for a number of years. I wasn't very good at it, so I didn't continue it. But what I can tell you is I think that we're in a really interesting time right now, where music I think is very easy to steal. Sadly, it's a small song file. Even back before Napster, I remember putting a cassette in the cassette player on the radio, and like my friends were like putting together mixtapes from songs that they recorded off the radio. I think that music is really easy to steal, and technology has made it even easier, and we saw that with the torrenting days and everything. And I think that now we're in a streaming era, and that's kind of changed the culture, so now people are more comfortable paying money. But I think that there's still so many places to get music that the value has been really affected. And I think that in terms of supply and demand, the demand for music, I believe, has never been higher. Yeah. But we just got to get the supply under control. And I think that as technology gets better, hopefully there's a way to control that supply, and maybe we're going to see another golden age at some point in the future. I'm optimistic, but I have absolutely no idea. So that's what I think.
All right, thank you. Serona, how about you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I do think you can make a living as a songwriter, but by that I don't mean that the only activity you do is write songs, in that even if you are not trying to be the artist, there's still business activities you need to do to get those songs into the hands of the right people that can then turn those into money-making assets, right? So whether that's pitching them to recording artists, whether it's pitching them to sync agents, getting those songs out of your creative environment and into a place where they're generating revenue, that work is significant and challenging and takes a lot of perseverance and takes that CEO hat. So, I do believe that I think if your question is kind of saying, well, can you be just a songwriter? Do you have to always be an artist too? I get that question sometimes. It's
Or a
flavor of
producer,
it.
or a composer, or a,
Right. So, I think where things continue to get more complicated, and it's an evolving and probably unendless, exhaustive process, is getting those amazing creations where they need to be, so that they can generate revenue. And that is here. That's not going anywhere. So it's probably a very rare person now that could say, so how did you spend your week? And you're like, well, 98% was just creating the music and 2% was getting it where it needs to go. It's probably not the blend for most people, right? Not.
Go for it,
Well,
Adrianne.
I was just going to say there's something that I have been doing for a long time now. And when I'm working with an artist and a top liner, so just a songwriter who is not contributing at all to the master, they're not the artist, they're not singing on it, I will give them 20% of the master.
Damn.
So basically, that's what it should be, because I just believe that's what it should be. And I think that, when you guys are working with producers and artists, I mean, in a very nice way, there's nothing wrong with asking for that. It's the artist and the producer are giving up 10%, which is not a big deal.
Yep.
And songwriters, they don't get paid for their day. And they're going to get the smallest cut of that entire pie in that entire room. And yes, the producer is doing the work of creating the track, but most of the time the producer is not a songwriter. He's just there so that he can get
or she
songwriter or she, yes, but it's really I think that a woman's not gonna be like,
we know who we're talking about.
Yeah, but I just think that you just have to think about it like the producer is there, he's not a songwriter, but he's getting songwriting credit. You're not the producer, but you should be getting, you know what I mean? It should sort of work both ways. So I do think that's a very fair thing. I also think that if you do want to diversify, I started calling myself a mix engineer before I believed that I really was. And I think that the technical side of mixing, the technical side of producing is bullshit. Jagged Little Pill was one of the biggest records of all time, and those are demos, and they sound like shit, and they are amazing. And I think that I have always led as being a songwriter, and the producer side and the mix engineer side has just helped me make money on those songs. But I think that you shouldn't let this idea that you have to be the most technically advanced producer or mix engineer in the world prohibit you from helping create these masters if that is a way that you want to make money.
That is such a great point, AG. We should. And I do feel like there is a movement afoot right now to get songwriters day rates, because it's true. It's like they're not like, you just show up at these sessions to write songs for artists, their managers or their labels or whatever. It's like they're not even paying for your fucking lunch and or your gas or anything, and everyone else in that ecosystem is getting paid or getting points, getting ownership. Day rates for songwriters is something that is, you can ask for, and then getting points on the master is absolutely something that should be happening. We've been hearing about it a lot more these days, and I think we should all be making more noise about that. And so, Annie, in your experience with your artists, with your songwriter clients, do you feel like the job pure songwriter is a thing, just being a songwriter, or do you need to be other things? And what do you feel like songwriters are, if they are doing other things, like where are they finding the most traction, success, money?
Yeah. I would say, I think everybody had an incredible response here. I would say that I think that to be purely a songwriter is possible. It's just really hard in order to be able to show up and do that and feel inspired and creative on a day-to-day basis. And I think that there's ways to be strategic about how to kind of diversify your business while still being a songwriter. So one example is a lot of my top liner clients, which I don't love that phrase, but top liner clients that are songwriters or not performing songs themselves, I usually will have a conversation with them at some point, and I'll say, hey, this demo that you made last week sounds really syncable. It has great momentum and great driving energy. Can I share this with the sync team? And if they're able to get a sync for it, would you be comfortable being billed as the primary artist on the song and it being your voice recording in the ad? And
No, I'd hate that.
and most of the time people are like, oh yeah, I had no idea that was even possible, so I think that, and that's a great example in which you become the artist, you have some autonomy, and then I've done that with clients, and then they start a sync project. So they team up with their favorite producer, and they are either working on sort of these evergreen sync needs that are recurring, or we get a request in for Fast and Furious, and then they spend a couple days focusing on that. And so yeah, I think that's a really great example. And you would own your master in that case. So you would sort of retain the master side of that sync fee, which is equivalent to what the publisher is being paid on your behalf. So that's one example.
That's really interesting. And it's actually making me think of like Lindsay Ray, who started she just made up this like other persona just for syncs, and like got like 1 million, of those like girl power kind of syncs, and must have made a bajillion bucks for that. But she made, she's a songwriter and artist who made up her own kind of like sync persona, and like just crushed it. Is that so? And that's kind of what you're describing.
Exactly.
Would you recommend that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, some of our clients will go as far as to, they make an artist name and an artist profile on Instagram and Spotify. And that's something that they can do on a weekly basis that is so different to showing up in the room and writing for another artist. That's actually really fun. I think that part of the creative experience for all, whether it's a producer, or writer, or songwriter, or artist rather, is to make sure that you're mixing it up. Like, I think even as an artist, making sure that some of your time is dedicated to writing for others, or trying a pitch day, or doing a sync focus day is really important. So that's one example. I also think that at a certain point in a writer's career, and I do a lot of this with my sort of more established pop clients, is that we start signing writers together. So that's a great way that a lot of my pure songwriters who are not really interested in having an artist career and really just want to be able to show up and write pop songs for some of the biggest, marquee artists out there, I have helped them build their own pulse, essentially. So we'll sign, in due time. You also have to make sure, because that's also a substantial commitment to make, to not only be trying to build your own path, but then to be mentoring somebody
that's
else.
CEO shit.
Yeah, that's a whole other, I feel like, masterclass on how to do that as a creative.
Season 2.
Season
Music
2.
and Money, 2025.
But in that situation, my one client, All Day, for example, he co-wrote Flowers for Miley last year and has a lot of cuts with Bieber and Blink-182. Yeah, I heard it in the bathroom. I was like, this is some good juju. Yeah, exactly. So we've helped him build a publishing company, and we have about 11 writers and producers and artists signed to him, and he becomes the publishing partner on that. So he controls part of their publishing. So if one of his clients goes on to have a hit, he's now publishing that song with us. So I think that there's ways to really diversify and think outside the box, even if you're like, I just want to write songs. And I do think that the business element of pitching songs and engaging people. And by the way, even if you have a publisher, I think to your point, I love it when my clients come to me and they say, I mean, it's not the best situation for us, but when people come and they say these 3 songs are missing from the MLC, a lot of the times I'm like, well, when did you send me the splits? Right. I think that it's also the onus is on clients and their teams to make sure that they're delivering these things in order to be able to register these songs. But making sure that you're really in control of your business in that capacity, I think, is really essential. And the last thing that I'll say is to the point of collaborating with producers who are willing to give you a piece of the master. Something that I always tell my younger clients who are writers is that start with someone that you have a lot of trust with. Say, I have an idea. I met this artist a couple weeks ago. We've been doing a bunch of sessions. I think we would do something really cool with her. If I'm able to bring you in on this, what would you think about sharing some of your master side with me? And I think it's a lot of the times we spend, both on the creative side and on the business side, you spend all this time sort of like, of course, idolizing these people above you and these legends and people that you've always wanted to meet. And I think a lot of people forget to look to their right and left and realize that, in 20 years time, you're going to be running a company and you're going to be, I think I think that, and frankly, when you talk to creatives who've been doing it a long time, they're looking at the 20-year-olds like, what are you listening to? Because that's what I want to be involved in. And so I think it doesn't have to be a massive producer for someone to be willing to involve you in that capacity. And so starting to build those relationships, I have a lot of clients that will form a writing production duo, and they'll bring each other artists and they'll work in threes, and then they'll split the master. And it becomes this really equitable way to really build with collaborators. And then once you do that long enough and, you know, you can have a hit at some point, I think that the payoff of that is so much better because it was done in such an equitable way.
Yeah.
You know?
I love that.
Yeah.
So I guess the theme is diversification, and I don't see why, you know, if we've been fortunate enough to have been given this, you know, creativity to you know, to write songs and make a living at that. I mean, being creative doesn't have to be limited to just your songwriting. I mean, we can apply that to our business life as well, you know, like where we can be as creative as we want to be.
That's how, as a creative person, you have to approach it, because
Yeah.
you don't think like an accountant. You don't think like a business person. You think as a creative person. So view your business that way. I'm creating this thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. We're going to stop for to take a little break. I hope people have been writing down questions because we're going to have, how long is our break, Ariel? 15-minute break. Questions go there. And we'll come back in a little bit and answer, and our wonderful panel will answer your questions.
Couple of people asked, if I sign up today for the MLC, are royalties paid out from today forward or retroactive from X amount of months, years ago? And also, does the MLC distribute money from streaming from before 2021?
Great question. So I have good news and great news. Okay. So the good news is that the MLC, you will always be able to collect, going backwards in time, at least 3 years of royalties. Always. The law, this is just about the MLC now. This is not how BMI or Sound Exchange or anybody else deals with retroactive royalties, but the law governs what the MLC does, and that law said specifically, we will always try to find the right person, pay the right party for at least 3 years. Always, by law, minimum. We can try for longer. We can hold them longer, and longer is better for the little guy, okay? We are allowed to hold them for more than 3 years, and we are currently. We've decided to hold them for more than 3 years, which is good for independent songwriters and smaller publishers. The great news is, and Kay and I were starting to touch on this a little, so I'm going to try not to get too complicated with it. We passed the Music Modernization Act, right, as an industry, because we knew this was not working well, okay? And one of the things that wasn't working well is that lots of these digital mechanical royalties were not making their way to the rights holders. So when the law was passed, what was also included in the law was this, we call it a safe harbor. It's like a get out of jail free card, okay, that said to the digital services, if when this new way of doing things goes into effect, January 1st, 2021, if the last day of 2020, you are still sitting on unpaid mechanical royalties, digital services, you can transfer that money and that data to the MLC and avoid getting sued. So they were like, yes, please, I will do that. And so they transferred more than $420 million to the MLC. And in some cases, that money goes all the way back to 2007. So what was fantastic about that transferring, it was the first time we as an industry knew how much money, right? Everybody knew there was lots, but this was being held at each of those companies, and nobody knew exactly how much. Nobody had seen the data. It was a hot mess when it came to us. We've cleaned up the data, we got it in our systems, and we've started paying it out. We started in the summer of 2022, and we've been paying it out ever since, and we keep paying it out. We call that money historical unmatched. And it's historical, by that we mean it predates the new way of doing things. So it's 2020 and earlier, and on our royalty statements, it's marked historical unmatched. Like you can see it, it's very clear. And we have a whole dashboard on our website If you go to the MLC.com under how it works, there's a page called Historical Unmatched. And we show what's happened with that money. How much have we paid out? How much are we still trying to pay out, right? So right now, you can go all the way back. Potentially, if you had a song that was recorded on a streaming service in 2007, you never got your mechanical royalties, we might still have them for you. We can't hold them forever. At some point, we will have to pay them out. By the way, they're earning interest, okay? That money is earning interest that gets paid out as well. Not this year, not in 2025, but probably sometime in 2026 will be the first time that we say something like, last call for royalties before some date. More than 3 years, but at some date. We'll publicize that everywhere. We'll be screaming it from rooftops and doing webinars, and we'll be all over the place about it, right? So you won't always be able to go back forever. You'll always be able to go back at least 3 years.
A follow-up question to that one?
Does that mean that if you went on and you matched, you've already, I think I've successfully matched everything, does that mean that I'm done? Or like I just now wait for?
So I think what you're talking about is we have a couple of tools that help our members to make sure they're not missing out on any of that money, right? In order to get paid by the MLC, 2 things have to happen. The song has to be in our database with your share claimed, okay? So the song's got to be registered, your share's got to be on it, and we have to match the sound recording to the song, okay? So those 2 things have to happen for that money to flow. We have a claiming tool where you can make sure, get your share added on every song that you have a share of. We also have something called a matching tool. Now, we are trying to do the matching. We have smart algorithms, a massive team of smart people doing matching, but we also have a tool that our members can use called our matching tool, where they can also search for any sound recording that had streams that we have not yet been able to connect to their song. They can search our database and say, hey, MLC, that is a recording of this song of mine. Match it up and let the money flow, right? And so we encourage our members to check that. We're doing all the things on our part too, but it takes everybody, right? So if you've already searched the matching tool and you know that you've looked in there and there's no more recordings of your songs that we haven't matched and you haven't matched, then you've probably got all there is to get. If that's kind of where you were heading with that.
Right on. David, question for you. Someone's asking if they have to sign up with PROs in other countries in order to collect their royalties from other countries.
With PROs, we all have reciprocal agreements with each other, which is a fancy way of saying we send money back and forth to each other. And we all work together in a big network. So if you sign up to one PRO, most people will sign up to that one PRO for the world. And so if you sign up to BMI with the territory of the world, then you don't have to sign up anywhere else. We will basically collect all of the royalties here in the United States. And then as your songs are performed in other countries, the local PRO there will collect your royalties. They'll see that you're not signed to them directly. They'll look in a big shared database. They'll say, oh, they're with BMI. They'll send the money to us, and we will pass that money on to you. You won't receive it till a pretty long time later, maybe a year and a half, sometimes 2 years, depending on how the payment schedules line up. But the money will eventually flow to us. So that's the way that it works on an international scale. You can divide up territories. You can do something called a limited territory agreement. So let's say you want to sign up to this PRO for these countries and that PRO for those countries. You can do that. But most people, I think, sign up to one for the world. And as a publisher, you could theoretically sign up at source to, different PROs around the world. But again, most just sign up to one.
I will just say that works differently for mechanicals. So
it does. Yes,
this
is only for performance. We may have a
question there, but it's a very different answer for mechanicals.
Yes.
Why don't you answer that question?
Okay, I don't want to seem like a mic hog. I'm going to be like, shut her up.
How dare you? No, I'm just kidding.
So the way the law that was written that created us, it says we are not allowed to collect mechanical royalties from overseas. It's not that we don't want to. It would literally take Congress to change the law to allow us to, okay? So we are not, unlike that, where you can sign up with BMI and say collect for the world, the MLC is only collecting from U.S. uses. So there's some things you can think about how to collect from outside of the U.S. One choice is perhaps sign up with a publishing administrator in the US that has international collection in place for mechanicals. The thing you have to keep in mind for that is that they're generally going to say to you, sure, sign up with us, but we're also going to collect from the MLC for you. Okay, we're going to collect all over the world, including from the MLC. That means they're going to take a commission on your MLC royalties, and you're not going to be able to use some of our tools because you're no longer now going to be a member of the MLC. They are going to do that for you, but that might be worth it, okay? Because they're often not just collecting mechanicals. They can do things like collect your social video and a whole bunch of other things. You need to make sure you understand exactly what they're collecting and from where. Another thing that I've recently found out about by asking, and there's a frequently asked question website post coming sometime soon on this topic. Other countries have mechanical rights societies, and I've talked to a couple, and I've said, what if there's a songwriter in the US who is self-published, and they want to sign up with you in your country for the rest of the world, excluding the US? Would you let them do that? And 2 of them said to me, yes. Now, it means, for example, one of them is in the UK. It's called MCPS. It means, though, that they're going to pay you in British pounds, okay? And they're on UK time zone. I mean, you're dealing with it, right? And there's taxes and that. But they could collect your mechanicals from all over the world, and you get your US ones from us, and they collect the rest of the world for you, right? So there's some different ways you can go about piecing together your global collections, and there are pros and cons of each of them. But I'm afraid we cannot collect them for you because the law that created us does not allow us to.
Great, thank you. AG, what is the percentage breakdown of your income when you're looking at performance royalties, mechanical royalties, producer points, sync fees, like all that stuff? Can you give us, like, we got the pie, where are the slices?
It changes, it ebbs and flows, but I would say nowadays it's DSP sales, because I'm a master owner, so that income, and then sync, and then I don't have really any. I have a couple producer cuts with major label artists. That's a small piece because producers get paid very little in that world on the back end. And I think, and then the interest on my catalog sale. I don't know. I think that's from stocks. I don't know. I think that's everything. And then Broadway, which is like,
that's what comes in the tip jar, right?
But the good thing about Broadway is that you keep your publishing, which is how they can justify paying you not a lot to make a musical for 3 years straight. Actually, it's way more than that usually. We're very lucky, but that's how they justify it. So we'll see. Maybe next year the pie will be Broadway. We'll see.
2025?
Yes.
October, you said?
Yes.
Okay. 12 months. Let's stick with you, I think, for this one. Someone's asking for, maybe a couple of people are asking for clarification about points for producers, and just clarification on what that is exactly. I think these folks are asking.
Well, points come into play when the producer doesn't own a portion of the master. Somebody else controls it, owns it, and then they pay you out.
A point is a percentage of revenue.
It's a percentage.
If you're getting 3
exactly.
points, it's 3%
yeah.
royalty. It's just
Specifically on the master.
On the master, yeah. And that's whether or not, like, it could be an independent artist that is controlling 100% of the master and paying me out 50 points, essentially, or 50%. Or it's a label that's paying me out 4 points or 4%.
Oh, there's something here for Kay. Is Kay still around? Is she hiding? Hi, come on back. Pops her head out. Nice. Okay, this person is asking how you would suggest connecting with networks, producers, other songwriters, etc., to get into kids media, writing songs for entertainment as a broader.
What Michelle and I have always said is that we don't write kid songs. I've never written a children's song in my life, and I really haven't. Sometimes, we get scripts that. Let me just say how we did it. So Michelle and I, when we first met, and we were, she was writing songs for pop stars like Cher and Hilary Duff, and it was the 90s, or the aughts. It was the early aughts. And and I had just moved to LA I wanted to do that stuff, but I was in a rock band and did like a bunch of stuff for like movie soundtracks and things like that with original music. And we got this idea that we wanted to make TV shows. Like when we met, we were just like, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to do this thing. We have no idea how to fucking do it, but we're gonna do it. And so one of the ideas that we had was to make a kids show called Miles and Mazzie's Musicarium. And we did not know at the time that you didn't just call up the president or the VP of programming at Disney Junior and say like, hey, we have an idea, can we come in? But we did. We literally called Nancy Cantor and we were like, you don't know us, but we have a show for you. We have just the show for you, Disney. And believe it or not, she took the meeting. and so what we did, I think that was different from, and I really do think that this works. If you have an idea that you're going to pitch to anyone, whether it's in television or whatever the case may be, like we went in with just like a one sheet describing the world, like Miles and Mazzie's Musicarium, where the places were in the world, who the kids were, and we had like Electric Lady Lunchland where they had lunch. I won't get into the details, but I will tell you that we like had the world, just kind of written down basically in a one sheet. We had recorded the songs that for the show for the world, and we also brought our guitars and we performed songs in the room for a television executive who listens to boring ass pitches all day. No one's ever brought a guitar into her office, and she was just like, we literally sold the show that day. It went nowhere, but it never went into development, or it was in development. It never went into production. But it established us, and we also sold one more like that. Again, a show that went nowhere. But it did establish us as people who could write songs in that medium. And so when the music for Doc McStuffins, which was not our show, went into production at Disney, the music wasn't working out, and they thought of us, and they were like, hey, what can you guys come in and consult? And we were like, oh damn, yes, we would love to be consultants. That sounds very like I was getting myself a briefcase and ready to like buy like a suit to be a consultant. Anyway, it put us in position to swoop in and get the job, and that was our first series that we ever got at Disney. So that's how that happened. Again, creativity, and also just being clueless and stupid, and just like doing things that you will later realize you're not supposed to do.
Maybe you should stay here, because maybe you have something to add to this one. So I think this one is for the songwriters among us. A couple of questions here, I guess, about the ethics. If I'm working on a song with a co-writer and then I finish that song with another co-writer and kind of ditch the original melody and lyrics that we had come up with, what is that about?
Is that a new song at that point?
Well, I think that's maybe the question. They're asking, they start off the song writing with one co-writer, and then they put aside what they came up with, and they bring that idea to another collaborator. So they're wondering, do the splits include that first person that they were working with?
Someone is like, I have a title idea, and they start writing the song with one person, and then they're like, I don't like the direction that this title / concept is going. I'm going to go a different way, using the same title that I brought to the table.
Is that sounding right? Whoever submitted this question? Yeah? Okay, let's go with that.
It's tricky. But I think it's just a conversation with that person. Just be like, what do you think is fair? this, you know that I brought this concept in, and I'm going in the completely different direction. So any contribution you made is not going to be used. I think it's just a conversation. It's an honest, frank conversation, and hopefully they're not assholes about it. But if they're assholes about it, then it is what it is, and you got it. And then you just know for the future, this person doesn't think fair-mindedly or is not wanting to work something else. I'm just not going to work with them again.
And let's hope that song is a hit anyway, right?
Exactly.
I would also just quickly add to that I do think it's kind of case by case. I also do think that communicating with co-writers is really important. And I have a lot of clients that have the same song title. They use it, 4 times, or it's a concept that they've been developing for a while, and that happens. But what I will say is that if you've written, let's say, like a melody or a hook or some element that you are choosing to carry into another session, let that second session know, hey, I wrote this with a friend last week. Are you comfortable writing to that? Like, you have to tell the new session that you've written it with someone else, because it will inevitably affect the splits of the new song, and they just need to know that this isn't something that you came up with on the same day. So I would just kind of over communicate in that way, for sure. And also tell the original session, when you get out of the session, hey, I was just in with somebody I love today, and we decided to pick up on this hook that we were writing last week. Can I send it to you? I wanted to make you aware. Just, I would have that conversation sooner rather than later, because I think that, that's just kind of the right thing to do.
Do you want to add anything, Kay?
I would always, if any element is left over from that original session, just cut them in, because I'm a believer in generosity when it comes to splits. I don't like divvy them up like really mathematically. It's just like, if you're there, if there's 3 of us there, it's thirdsters all the way. Because if nothing happens with the song, who cares? But if it becomes a huge hit, it's not going to make a difference whether you get 33 1/3% or 40%. It's like, just err on the side of generosity. That's kind of where I land on stuff like that. But if it's just a title and what AG was referring to, and none of those elements are coming in, then communicate.
I also think that, like, as humans and as creative people, we're not always going to show up with our A game, but maybe the other person will that day, and maybe it's vice versa. But just as part of being in a community of creative people, it's like that easily could have been you that day. And so that's another reason why this straight split is like the move, as opposed to divvying. Well, I wrote the chorus, or no, I wrote the verse. Like, it's just not a good spirit of collaboration, I don't think.
Yeah, you have a follow-up to that?
Piggybacking off of that, so as an independent artist, like, I'm negotiating all those conversations, but when you have like an A&R or something like vouching for you, are they the one having those conversations with the people they put you in the room with? Like, if they decide,
Oh, who's negotiating the splits? If you have, if Pulse is setting up the session or something like that, or is it always up to the people in the room to negotiate the splits?
Yeah, I mean, people like to say that, like, a great rule of thumb is to establish splits when you're writing songs. I think that's pretty unrealistic. I don't know that like, unless it's just, we're going equal today. I mean, I think that that's sort of the unspoken rule of thumb, specifically in like the more pop genre. I know that the hip hop side is like 50% for track, 50% for top line. But yeah, part of my job is that I'm helping negotiate splits for my clients. Most of the time it is equals, but sometimes a song is kind of Frankenstein. So I have a writer that wrote the hook, and then it gets taken over here and somebody writes the verses and then the bridge. So it's like, there's so many different arrangements of that. But I am negotiating for my clients in that regard, or their manager is negotiating. And oftentimes it's really a question for the creatives. And so if we end up like at a stalemate, I'll say you kind of need to go talk to your co-writers and just figure out what feels right, because everybody has a different story, So I would say most of the time, I mean, I do have a lot of splits disputes that I have to deal with, but most of the time it's equal splits. Yeah.
in when SONA had a project called Sexy Metadata Action Group, and it was an education project to encourage songwriters to talk about like the birth of metadata in the room, and you know the important pieces of the metadata that is going to follow your song, you know, throughout its journey into the world. It's like who's in the room. Like if it's two writers and a producer, what are the splits? And it doesn't mean that the splits are going to be forever because other people may come in. But like right now, who's in the room? What's your name? What's your PRO? And what's the song title? And how are we splitting this pie? And if you can leave the room with that sort of etched into stone, then you are in great shape. That's sort of like that's the Sexy Metadata Action Directive.
Such a catchy name. Yeah. Oh. Of course. Similar to that question, another person has a question about they wrote a song with a co-writer, and then they've, I think, lost touch with the co-writer. And they can't get a hold of them. They did not do the SMAG thing. They did not put that in stone. So they're wondering, they really want to release this song, what to do. And then also questioning, does an email or just a DM on social media count as a legal document when trying to trace this back because they want to release this song? Thoughts on that sticky situation?
I mean, I feel like it's really hard to not be able to track people down in some capacity, especially if you want to put out. Yeah, I mean, to me, what I would recommend is definitely in some written capacity, reach out. Say, hey, I've been trying to call you. I've been trying to text you. I haven't been able to get a hold of you. This is my plan for the song. And my belief is that as long as you're intending on properly splitting the copyright, this is like a win, right? You're going to put the song out. Amazing. So if you are against it, if it were me, I would think it's appropriate for you to put out the song. That person might hear the song and reach out and say, hey, I heard our song. And you would say, yes, here are all of the examples of me trying to make contact with you. I'm so happy to hear from you. What's your PRO information? And let's get your part of the song registered. So that's how I would approach it as an artist or as an artist manager that's trying to release a song. But I do think it requires consistent, multiple written communication.
Say I'm an artist distributing my music via CD Baby. What are they collecting? If they're CD Baby Boost or having a publishing admin deal. Did we already talk, by the way? I was setting up something on the website. Did we talk about the publishing copub, subpub, admin? Maybe we should take a minute there. Sure. Yeah. Annie, tell us.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
So the different kinds of publishing deals are really just reflective of what your split is of this publisher share that we've been talking about. So there's the writer share, which will come to you as the writer, and then the publisher share that when you're engaging in a publishing deal is what is in question. So as I mentioned, as a boutique publishing company, we do 50-50 pub deals. So you would be retaining your 50% of the publisher share, and we're engaging in a co-publishing deal. An admin deal looks different, and usually those splits can range between 90-10, 85-15, any sort of sliding scale in that capacity. And that means that you would be retaining 90% of the publisher share, and that if I worked at Warner and I signed you to an admin deal, you would keep 90% and we would keep 10% as a sort of administrative rate and fee in order to make sure that we're collecting all of your royalties globally and giving them to you. So that's just really kind of what the breakdown looks like. And I will just add that a lot of times admin deals happen I would say that co-publishing deals, at least the way that I'm pitching this to people that I'm hoping to sign, is that the sort of array of creative services that you're getting in exchange for co-owning the publishing is worth your while, right? I'm like, if I can help you get a hit song and you keep 50% of that and we keep the other 50, that's better than 10% or 90% of something much less. So I think you just kind of have to weigh what the opportunity is and whether you feel creatively connected to that A&R person or the team as a whole, and take it from there. But it's definitely really common for very high-level songwriters who don't either really competitive deals, and they can just get splits that are much more in their favor, and they absolutely should go and do that if they have the opportunity to do so. But that's kind of what the breakdown looks like between admin and co-pub.
Do you want me to chime in on the CD Baby type question?
Yeah, go for it.
So CD Baby is an example of a company that obviously once upon a time, they actually used to sell CDs in the mail, hence the name. But then they branched out to being a distributor, sometimes called an aggregator, but a distributor of sound recordings to digital music services. That was what they did for a long time. And then they realized a lot of these independent artists who we are distributing sound recordings for write the songs that they record. And they've got some needs that are not being met in the marketplace. So we as a company, CD Baby, let's expand our service offerings to meet some of these additional needs of our sound recording distribution clients. Let's branch out into publishing administration. Okay. And they've actually done this in 2 different flavors in terms of how they first started and now what it is. And the answer is different for each company that has done this. If you're interested in having CD Baby act as your publishing administrator or signing up for CD Baby Boost, you need to look closely at the fine print to understand what exactly are you authorizing them to collect for you. For example, an earlier version of CD Baby's publishing admin was global admin, right? And it wasn't exactly the same admin services that you might offer, right? It was just, these are the things they're doing for you. The new one now is less than that. They're not collecting international. So you have to sit there and read the fine print, get them on the phone, customer service goes, so this Boost thing, what exactly are you collecting from where? And then you need to ask the same thing to TuneCore's publishing admin. And you need to, because they're not all identical. What they're offering is not exactly the same in terms of what they're collecting, from where they're collecting. And only they can give you the answer. I don't know if they changed their program an hour ago, I don't know. You have to ask them, right? Read their website, call them up. Say, so what is this thing? What exactly are you collecting? From where? What kind of royalties is it? Is it mechanicals? Is it the publisher's share of performance? What about social video sync? Is it US? Is it internet? You have to ask them that because what each of them is doing is not identical. They're different, and only they can answer that for you.
I am so glad this is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel and on the SONA Foundation website. David, how does an artist, so I'm guessing this is a room of songwriters, but some are performing songwriters. How does an artist get featured in the BMI showcase or a BMI networking mixer?
So the best thing to do is to find me after the showcase. But the reality is we have showcases at around all of our offices, and we have other events that are not near offices as well, like Lollapalooza. So I would just email your local office, call them, reach out to me if you know me, reach out to your local BMI person who you know, and ask. We book, for all of our showcases locally. I just had someone reach out to our Los Angeles at BMI email, and they're from Chicago, but they're making a trip to LA, and they wanted to know if they could play one of our showcases. So I'm going to try to accommodate. So yeah, that's it. Just reach out.
Does being here today count as knowing you?
Yes. You know me intimately by this point. Yes.
I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Do you have to be a BMI artist to play the BMI showcase, or can you be on CSAC? Or?
Yes. We have 1.4 million members, so we have to service them first. Yes.
We just have a couple minutes left, and then we have a hard out at 4 p.m., meaning nobody can be in this room at that time. So we still have a couple more questions, but I do want to direct you to the SONA Foundation website, where we have links to a lot of different resources, including the MLC, or you can just go to the mlc.com. There are so many wonderful resources on the website, and in fact, that handout, that double-sided 8.5 by 11. Nope. Double-sided 8. The white paper. Goodness gracious.
5 by 7.
They're
maybe.
not
That one, yeah.
mathematicians.
Oh, the big one. Your
The
double-sided one. There you go.
The 8.5 by 11. There are resources that are on there that to direct you to specific subpages of the MLC website. So some of these questions, you'll find those answers there. I think we should just end with this one. It's just kind of what do you think? What are the notable differences between artistic genius and the money-making songwriter?
I'm taking a pass on that one.
I'm gonna. I think again we're entering opinion zone. I feel like music is one of those things that like you get into because you like doing it, and then it becomes a job later. It kind of sneaks up on you. I don't think anyone is doing insurance on the weekends for fun, at least no one that I've met. So yeah, the commerce and the art is kind of intertwined in a very interesting way in music and in certain other industries like painting or other arts, right? Certain other things, sports. Genius is like, I don't think that anyone is a genius. I think that people, I heard someone have genius. People experience genius. But yeah, I think that making money and making good art are two different things. And sometimes they overlap like a Venn diagram and sometimes they don't. And I'll leave it at that.
Great answer.
Anybody else want to try that one? No?
People I know who are geniuses, not for nothing. The musical geniuses I know ended up having to go to work at the bank at age 28 because they couldn't do all the stuff that you need to do to survive into your 30s in this business. So like people who are far, far better songwriters and singers, artists than I will ever be, just don't end up doing it. You never hear about them, so.
And I'll add one last thing. I think that that's a great point. And I think that optics, in terms of like when you're thinking about like who each of us would define as a genius, for sure, people are just like channeling to this higher power thing that is very unique to them, which is why we all do this and participate. At least that's why I do it, is to be able to collaborate with people like that. But that doesn't mean that they're not business savvy. It doesn't mean that they're not aware of how much they're getting paid to play a festival, that they're not aware of how their finances break down. I don't think that those are mutually exclusive. I think that they can very much, they oftentimes are very intertwined. And obviously that's the importance of also having a team who you really trust and can speak to that. And then the last thing that I'll say is that part of the ethos of the company that I work at, Pulse, it was founded by two songwriter producers who essentially set out to start the publishing company that they wish that they were signed to and have it feel like this really sort of holistic family experience and vibe. And the way that we always talk about our signings is that we've always just signed the most uniquely different creative person possible, usually at the beginning of their career. And if you funnel enough service and support and creativity to those people, ultimately that becomes pop music. And I think that pop music is just what's popular. And if you believe in your talent and your skill and you hone that enough, there's no reason for that not to be commercially viable. So I think you don't always have to like sell your soul to make money. There's a way to really straddle both of those worlds simultaneously without sacrificing your creative integrity.
And I think that sometimes it's just going to take longer to make more money because you aren't sacrificing and selling your soul, and that's what happened for me. I just refused to make certain kinds of music that just wasn't inspiring to me. And so it took me longer, a lot longer. But I didn't quit and I did it I just like wasn't going to sacrifice that. I also think that you're going to have wins, and it's the whole ball game is taking that win and milking the shit out of that one win. How can I build on this one win? I mean, just get all the juice you possibly can out of it. Never be short-sighted and just be like, oh, well, this was cool, great, now moving on to the next thing. No, now I have credibility in this way. How can I build on that? How can I get into different rooms because of da-da-da-da-da? And that is literally how I have done everything since my CEO was born. I have literally done that every time I have had a win. and it's served me well. And it's just, you have to be thinking long game all the time, and that also includes how you interact with people in your community, how you interact with business people, never showing your ass, even if the dude next to you is showing their ass, or woman, or whatever. It's long game all the time, forever. Otherwise, there won't be a long game.
Thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you to our moderator, Kay Hanley, and our host, John Bittrick, our venue host, BMI, and our partner in this series, City National Bank. And thank you all for being here. Stay in touch. See you at the next one.
See you next year.